Hundreds of Tibetan protesters
Tibet belongs to Tibetans!
converge on the state capitol and don't want to leave. At 5:01, state troopers tell them to move off the steps closest to the State House doors.
Straight down this hill, there's a
The demonstrators slowly move to the first landing.
So we are actually, here to let them know, that the situation in Tibet has been going worse and worse.
Caskets represent at least a dozen Tibetans who recently felt so oppressed they killed themselves.
So many Tibetans are burning themselves because they're getting frustrated with the policies of the Chinese Communist Party.
If it's worth getting arrested to be here, that's up to you. But you need to get going, because it's past 5 o'clock.
A half hour passes, more troopers move in. A Department of Corrections van arrives, and eventually 24 troopers. And still, the protesters stay put.
Yeah, we're planning to stay here, basically, this is a public property, of course, I'm quite sure. And
if you're not going to leave at 5 o'clock, then you'll be arrested, period.
By 5:45, the troopers have had enough. They form a line and push protesters back.
Why do you support for these people?
Most are mad, but moving. Of the hundreds there, just one is arrested and hauled away.
We don't want any problems. We really don't.
Troopers continue to move the crowd toward a designated protest area off the State House grounds.
We've got a staging area for you.
As they move to the south side of the State House, Chinese Americans make their way to the north side, not as vocal, but perhaps just as passionate. A chance to see their vice president in Iowa, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
I used to work for the Beijing Olympics, but this is more important than that for me.
Down the road, the Tibetan protesters are still shouting. It's a rare opportunity for them, too. They're free to speak their minds, but frustrated the vice president may not even hear them.
There are a lot of emotions right now. They really want to be near to the Chinese leader, but that's the location we got getting, so there's nothing we can do.
Jim Lemke was just being neighborly.
He didn't just want to know if you want to use my phone.
The noon-hour knock came with a request for a drink.
The kitchen's out there. I didn't follow him.
That elderly man,
only 83. Well, I'm just getting started.
Had no idea it was the fugitive that had wrecked his car, triggered an elementary lockdown, and had officers swarming.
And at what point did you realize something was up?
When I seen all these fuzz.
Neighbors know Jim's feisty enough to name his cane.
I'd just pick up my equalizer, say, would you like to leave?
But they hadn't heard from him for a while.
We decided, that we better get a hold of him and make sure that somebody isn't, doing something bad to him.
Inside, Jim had 30-year-old Denny Hoffman at cane point.
I spent a few years in the Army, so I know what hurts and what don't.
And waited.
I was sitting on my chair, and he was sitting on the one across from me. Not much of nothing, actually.
Until the Army of Reinforcements moved in, led by a riot shield.
Took him out of the chair and said, let's go.
Most folks who survive a living room encounter with a wanted man being led to a car in cuffs would have frayed nerves.
Well, thankfully he's all right, and that's what we was concerned about.
Jim could care less, instead using his old equalizer to hobble around in search of his cat, Bubble Butt, who had to be around here somewhere.
I guess I'm one of them crazy people that things don't really bother you. I'm too old, excuse me.
we can edit it.
Flipped cars, piles of debris, and broken power lines. This is what Creston looked like late Saturday night. It was chaos here at the Greater Regional Medical Center. A tornado hit the Creston Hospital shortly before 7 p.m.
There were no warnings. There were no sirens that went off, so it just happened very quickly.
Ambulances scrambled to evacuate patients to nearby hospitals. Police say, unbelievably, no hospital patients or staff were seriously injured.
I think we were very fortunate. It could have been a lot worse.
The hospital's major damage was to the roof, but just by looking at the parking lot, you could see piles of debris and smashed, overturned cars. Not far from the hospital, the community college also suffered a devastating blow. The dorms here at Southwest Community College were some of the hardest hit buildings in the storms. Students said they knew the tornado was coming when they heard the glass shatter in the windows and front door.
This is just from just all the little bits of glass. Luckily, I don't think any of the glass really got into me too much.
Tyler, a freshman at Southwestern Community College, was scraped up after crawling through the lounge of his dorm trying to take cover.
And then next thing I knew, I just heard windows busting all around us, and we had to dive to the floor. And then one of my friends, Erica, had grabbed onto my legs, and we just kind of crawled to the bathroom as fast as possible.
Girls next to us, same thing. Their room got destroyed, and they were asleep in the living room, and they just barely woke up in time.
Students had to sleep on cots and stay the night in the school student union. They all say they were still shaken up, but grateful to be alive.
Somebody had a few stitches, but otherwise, we're very fortunate. We're very fortunate that this was a weekend where a lot of our students had left for the weekend.
Laura Nichols, KCCI News Channel 8, Iowa's news leader.
Spend any time on the road.
Where I'm from, people are a lot better drivers than when I moved here into Des Moines.
And you'll run into another driver who just makes you wonder.
More bad drivers than good drivers.
Where did they learn how to drive?
There's a lot of bad drivers. There's some good drivers, and there's drivers who should be taken off the road.
Jackie Stanley says she's seen it all out on the road, and she helps us begin with bad driving habit number 8, complaints about our beloved pets in a driver's lap.
The pet's moving around, so I don't see how they can see to drive, and it's not safe for them or the pet.
Intersection troubles make up number 6 and 7 on our list of bad driving habits. Our viewers don't like seeing people speed up to make it through yellow lights, and they really don't like drivers who turn right on red without checking oncoming traffic.
They turn right on red thinking that it's a right instead of a privilege.
Entrance ramp confusion is our 5th bad driving habit.
This pet peeve is a double whammy. Drivers are often upset when it takes cars too long to get up to speed on an entrance ramp, and there's always the question of what to do about merging at the end of the entrance ramp.
The experts say you should be traveling at freeway or interstate speed by the time you merge. But remember,
you have to understand when you are merging onto the interstate, you do not have the right-of-way. That vehicle on the interstate has the right-of-way.
Our 4th bad driving habit?
You need to get over to the right and let people pass you.
Bill Brunia is frustrated when drivers are hogging the left lane, or passing lane as it's called, often blocking faster drivers from getting by.
That's the passing lane, and it's supposed to be left open for passing.
But Iowa law does not see it that way.
People call it the fast lane, but there is no law stating that you have to move over for a vehicle. If you are driving in that left lane and you are driving the posted speed limit, you can stay in that left lane as long as you want.
Still, Sergeant Scott Bright says drivers should move to the right as a courtesy, especially if they're going slower than the speed limit. Iowans have a reputation for not using their turn signals, which makes the number 3 spot on our list.
It's a guessing game, but I appreciate when they do use them.
Here's the law. Signal at least 100 feet before a turn if the speed limit is 45 miles per hour or less. If the speed limit is faster than 45, signal at least 300 feet before you turn. Tailgating is our number 2 bad driving habit.
Because you can't see what's happening. I can hit my brakes and you don't know what's in front of me. You don't know what I'm seeing.
The Iowa DOT suggests staying back 1 car length for every 10 miles per hour of speed you're traveling. 60 on the freeway, stay back about 90 feet from the car in front. And number 1 on our list?
Texting, talking on the phones, not paying attention.
Makes you mad?
Oh, yeah.
Distracted driving. KCCI viewers say they cannot believe some of the things drivers do in the front seat instead of concentrating on the road.
And I can see they're texting or they're putting on makeup or doing something like that, so it's just kind of frustrating.
And sure enough, we found driver after driver on the phone. Cell phones are part of our lives, and that includes talking in the car. But we caught this woman with a phone in one hand and a power cord in the other. How is she even steering? A close second to phones eating in the car. Texting is also a big problem, but the Iowa State Patrol says that law is almost impossible to enforce.
We try to tell people, is it worth your life to try to look at that email? That email is going to be there when you get to the office. So the best thing to do is put your phone down, keep your focus on driving, and that's the number 1 task at hand.
If quiet's a virtue, McCallsburg's your town.
Yeah, you can stand in the middle of Main Street and nobody's going to run over you.
But even towns this small
About 313.
need a cheerleader.
In my reign, I got natural gas in this city. I got cable TV in this city.
Theirs didn't choose to run for mayor when he hit retirement age. He was written in.
I guess I've got to do it. They put their confidence in me. I'll do my best to serve them.
Now, 22 years later, Wally Loney might be pushing 88.
Hi, Pam.
Hello. But he's pulling the weight of a man half his age.
Hard for the town to run without him.
Somebody has to do it. And I enjoy doing it.
Every morning he cruises town, checking for trouble at the water tower.
This is an auxiliary pump.
And wrestling utility covers he wouldn't have to be.
That's what keeps me young.
A young 88.
Some days I feel like 108. Next day I might feel like a newborn, kicking and raising kingdom.
During summer, he's the city mower. After storms, he's on the cleanup crew.
And I enjoy every minute of it. I really do.
Morning, Wally.
Morning.
Whoever wrote in this great-grandpa for mayor might have done it for a laugh.
If brains were dynamite, he couldn't blow his nose.
Something like that.
But the nearly 90-year-old who's not doing it for the money.
They give me a cupcake every now and then.
Is proving small-town pride doesn't expire with age.
Wally's probably the most caring, most concerned small-town mayor you could find.
In McCallsburg.
It's just a nice place to live.
Eric Hansen, News Channel 8, Iowa's news leader.
So 6, thank you. Raffle tickets.
Friday sunsets scream small-town pride.
It's our homecoming, and I'm the king.
But on the night of royalty,
she is being escorted by Logan Weirs.
Everyone's pumped up.
Osceola's man with a crown has dubbed himself the Scream King.
I always cheer. Lose, win, I always cheer.
If he only knew what had started 2 hours earlier.
And keep us true to high ideals. We ask for SAE.
In a house 45 miles away.
Love that football!
Some college kids spend their Fridays hitting a club.
Hey, new shirt.
Here, Goodwill's the brand of choice.
Time to get painted up.
And Estee Lauder would cringe.
That's it. Yeah.
Yes.
If she knew it took experience to teach them, don't use house paint.
It didn't come off for like 3 days.
Then, an hour before kickoff,
Is everyone else outside?
See you, Mike.
they move.
Small town. Woo! Here's my number. Everybody. So call me maybe.
Back in Osceola, the homecoming banner is a tradition. The 40 lunatics are not.
What's going on?
They're too old to be students here.
Hey, it's marked on 5 yards.
Who are those guys? I want to get to know them. There's some pretty good-looking ones.
Mystery men in maroon
Go Indians!
who will take over the front row. They're not alums
As far as I know, I don't think anybody knows anybody here.
or cousins.
I don't think any of us out here are related to anybody.
They are the brothers of Simpson College's SAE fraternity.
Shut that Indian spirit out!
Who've been delivering school spirit unannounced to small towns across southern Iowa for 20 years.
Beat 'em! Defeat 'em! Knock 'em under! Woo!
Every year we go to 2 or 3 football games as well as a couple basketball games. Just go cheer on either a visiting team, an underdog. If somebody asks us to go cheer on their team, whatever it takes, we get out there and lose our voices by the second half, but stay for the third and fourth quarters.
Violets, emblem of fraternity.
They'll serenade the queen
I couldn't stop smiling. They're kind of crazy.
or scream when their team's down 6-0 or 28-0
It doesn't bother us.
or 48-0.
This is the time where we get really pumped up. We get the crowd pumped up.
It's totally hilarious. We're enjoying it.
Which is progress, because these stands
It probably would have been really empty after the band got done.
have seen a lot of misery. Over the last 11 years, Clark's record was 5-94. This year's new coaches started 3-0, getting the fraternity's attention
We got spirit, yes we do! We got spirit, how about you?
before their showdown with 7th-ranked Bondurant Farrar.
I-N-D-I-A-N-S! I-N-D-I-A-N-S!
Just
just amazing to see the support for the kids. They love it.
Some spot a frat boy and think trouble.
We're here to prove them wrong, and that's what we're doing.
What's gonna work? Teamwork!
By the time the clock matched the home team's score, Osceola's eardrums were hearing a different tune.
Even though it was a pretty bad loss, you can still have fun. You can always go out there, support a team, and just pick them up when they're down.
Eric Hansen, News Channel 8. Iowa's news leader.
I wish they'd come to every game.
Pull into the lot.
The way they're buying them in there, you better get in there.
And you could tell panic was parked just around the corner.
Here's on KCCI.
People are stacking up in their Hostess.
The sign in the front window said it all.
I didn't even know it was closing.
Not just the outlet near the fairgrounds, the whole Hostess company.
Forever. And I can't imagine them being gone. What am I going to feed them?
Beverly's first thought, her descendants.
I'm buying these for our great-grandchildren that are going to be here for Thanksgiving.
I live in Colfax, and I just heard about it.
And the bread man came in and said, we're closing today.
Wildfire spreads fast, but the status of the Twinkie shelf?
I just wanted to let you know.
That's a nostalgic kick in the pants.
Yep, I used to. Yep, he used to have Twinkies all the time.
That prompted a run on the outlet that could have charged double instead of half price. Some came for the last loaves.
I thought maybe this might be my last chance to get this.
But most came for the plastic-wrapped icons that fueled their childhood.
It's just there. It's always there. You don't expect it to go bye-bye because Twinkie, ding-dong. It's like cockroaches. It'll be there till when the Armageddon happens.
Ask the adults to be honest, and plenty will admit it had been a while since their last Suzy Q or Zinger.
I'm 76 years old, sir. Not for at least 50 years.
But 2 hours after the outlet opened, the cashier was ringing the last ding-dong, the fruit pies were going, and the Twinkies were gone.
It's an icon for number one, and number two, they're good. And number three, they probably stay fresh forever, so.
You better have one today.
If not,
bye, thank you.
Look for it on eBay, probably for $50 by next week.
It was coming down really fast. Reese Bradling says it was a fighter jet. And then it seemed to me like at the last possible second, it kind of banked hard to the left and then went vertical at full throttle. And so I was like, holy cow. So I turn around and I look, and the engine boosters are just glowing bright, bright orange.
An F-15 flying just above that streetlight and over the tops of those homes.
The windows were rattling, and it was definitely a wake-up call. It was very close, very, very, way closer than it ever should have been, for any reason.
But it felt like it was right on top of me, yes, it did.
Did you think he was going to crash?
For a minute, I did, yes. But then he banked hard to the left, like I said, and then you could just feel the power of the engines, and he went up vertical. And like I said, my windows were shaking in my office. You could almost feel it in your chest, and he just went up like vertical.
1 Des Moines approach on frequency.
We learned Venom 1 was his call name.
Venom 1, maintain VFR at your discretion.
Radar shows he did a couple of tight turns and took off. It rattled windows for miles.
I was like, oh, holy cow, what's going on? And oh, did you guys see that?
Once we started making phone calls, the Florida Air National Guard found out about what happened in the skies over the western suburbs. They say they contacted the pilot immediately, who admitted to flying low here. They say an investigation is now underway, and that pilot, he was sent on a commercial flight back to Florida.
Somebody's gonna have a little talking to with the pilot, I would say.
The Florida National Guard says there were no mechanical problems with the jet and it wasn't about to crash. The pilot was headed from Jacksonville to Sioux City so his jet could get painted. But the color he left behind here?
The rocket boosters, I mean, they were just full throttle, more power. It was bright, bright orange.
Won't be forgotten anytime soon.
I mean, it's a very heavily populated area. You don't want anything to happen at all, but if somebody was playing tricks or games or, wanted a thrill ride, this is not the place to do it at all.
Inside Moral Hay Mall, a bench and 2 potted trees cover up what was once the GameStop store owned by James Beaudry. It shut down in April after a police investigation that lasted half a year. Digging through hundreds of pages of police reports spanning several cities and 2 states, we discovered disturbing new information about the 440-pound father and things he allegedly did to 3 of his children, including incidents that allegedly happened right here in a privately owned mall yet very public place. Des Moines police first heard about Beaudry on October 19, 2011, when one of his children ran away. A social worker reports the child hopped a Greyhound bus to Minnesota and spilled a story to her there. The child was escaping a beating in the back of the store, 100 whacks with a broom handle on her bare bottom. The child says James Beaudry just kept whacking, and even several days later, social workers saw bruises. In March, James Beaudry pled guilty to simple assault in the case. A judge ordered him to pay a $65 fine and to take parenting classes. As he was in and out of Polk County Court on that charge, Beaudry was allegedly doing even worse things to 3 of his 9 children. On November 25, 2011, one child claims James Beaudry raped her at the Valley West Inn in West Des Moines, where the family of 11 stayed in one room. The child sought help the next day at Moral Hay Mall.
There was an allegation that was made to the security at Moral Hay Mall.
A security officer escorted the young woman to our security office and followed procedure and called the Des Moines Police Department. The Des Moines Police Department came and interviewed the young woman. It's our policy and procedure, and it is certainly the policy and procedure of the Des Moines Police Department that our security officers are not present during any interviews of any nature.
Des Moines Police then alerted West Des Moines Police because that's the city where the alleged assault occurred. West Des Moines detectives then came to interview the child in the mall security office. Moral Hay Mall initially told us back in April they had, quote, no knowledge of alleged events, and they stand by that today. That doesn't match what's in police reports and what Des Moines Police Sergeant Chris Scott told us yesterday.
A report was made to a security guard at Moral Hay Mall that she had been sexually assaulted by her father.
Moral Hay Mall says that part didn't show up in their security report, and neither did the October 18th beating that happened in the back of the store.
Unless the police inform us of it, that's correct. I mean, it's unfortunately the case, but that is in fact correct.
You just get kind of a weird feeling every time you leave, like something's just out of place or not with the norm of other game stores.
Mike Hurt frequented GameStop and said a child was always the cashier. That child told a social worker she worked 70 hours a week there. It's where the Beaudrys organized opportunities for people to come play games in the back of the store.
The store oftentimes advertised Yu-Gi-Oh! As a game which is predominantly played by young teens. And that's oftentimes who I saw in the back.
This January 30th police report shows the same child who was beaten in the back of the store also reports an attempted rape there. She said her father pushed her into a recliner and tried to remove her clothes, but luckily she got away. In all, police say there were 8 instances of sex abuse that happened between October 1st of last year and February 24th of this year, but charges weren't brought until April. Beaudry wasn't ordered to stay away from children until May 7th.
We often want to believe that this could be reported and we can solve it, in an hour like on TV. Well, it's just not the way it happens. It does take a lot of time.
They say complicating matters was mom Kia Beaudry, who repeatedly told police one of her children had mental problems. That child, police say, changed her story several times.
There is nothing fast about it. It was just a matter of corroborating and sorting through what are the real facts, given the fact that we haven't always had the truth before. What's the truth now? It is very complex.
Unfortunately, it may well have confirmed what her father may have told her, that no one will believe you, that people will wonder about you and wonder about your mental health, and so that's very sad and discouraging.
Beth Barnhill is the executive director for the Iowa Coalition Against Sexual Assault. She says it is normal for a victim of repeated sexual abuse to remember new things weeks or even months after an attack.
That unfortunately gets used to discredit victims at times because stories do change as they remember things, or sometimes as a result of the fear they're experiencing.
Police report all 9 children are now safe in foster homes and shelters here in Des Moines. They say that's what it took to get to the truth about James Beaudry.
It wasn't towards the very end where all the kids were removed, and I think that's when they finally started to get all the facts and the puzzle pieces put together to say, this is the problem, we've got to do something, we've got to do it now. Up to that point, certainly concerns, but we don't want to be premature. We want to make sure that when we do it right.
From October through February, this pile of police reports shows a girl crying out for help after she escaped a brutal beating in the back of the Game Sip store at Morley Mall that left green and purple bruises for several days. She escaped to Minnesota and told a social worker there she was, quote, scared to go back home, just felt safer up here, and just wanted to be placed in a safe home. Minnesota social workers put her in a shelter there, then moved her to an Iowa shelter. The girl was away from her family for 3 weeks, but eventually ended up back in the Morley Mall store, where the family of 11 was living and back with the father she feared. By January, this report details how she ran away again, saying her father had raped her. She told police to, quote, check her into a shelter, and they did. But when she found out she was headed back home a couple days later, the girl ran away from the shelter, telling workers she was scared to go back to her father.
It doesn't matter necessarily the number of complaints. It depends on the evidence that we gather on each complaint.
While Vern Armstrong, a DHS administrator, won't talk about the evidence in this case, police reports indicate few people believed what the girl was saying.
We don't just remove a child because the child says, I don't want to be here anymore. It really depends on the evidence that we get, and what they tell us, though, is really key. We have 20 business days to finish a child abuse assessment. We go out and see the child right away, and we perform a safety assessment and determine what the level of risk is to the child right then.
Police reports reveal that in October, officers visited Morley Mall and talked with 4 of the 9 Beaudry children. All 4 of them reported physical abuse, but charges weren't brought until April, and the children remained with their father.
Why not just remove them to be safe? Until the investigation is complete, why not just remove them?
We get tens of thousands of reports every year. It turns out that only about a third of those end up being founded. If we removed every child that we went out and investigated on, we would be unnecessarily harming children and families.
Left, right.
2 months after the accident,
Left, right.
Christina Keeker could not stand, and only noises spilled out of her mouth.
Here it comes. How we're going to add this.
Doctors told her husband Christopher to hope for a breakthrough that might never come.
Perfect. Ready?
But 13 months after her accident,
and this is part of Christina developing and progressing. She's going to walk on her own 2 feet someday. That's the goal, metaphorically and physically.
It's safe to say a breakthrough has been made. Christina can now stand and take small, careful steps by herself, but her true freedom is on a bike.
You feel safe?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
As long as you feel safe, that's great.
This is the result of countless hours of therapy and the unwavering support of her husband, who is with her all day, every day.
I committed to Christina when I married her to do whatever it took, no matter what, for whatever reason, to maintain our relationship in the way it was and maintain the integrity of our values and our beliefs. And that's what got me through the worst moments.
Her newfound freedom came courtesy of a Michigan company, Terra Trike, who donated a $1,000 bike after learning Christopher wanted to buy one from Bar Bike in Clive.
Just Terra Trike just called me and said, hey, we want to give away a Rover to your customer. Is that okay? I said, that's fantastic.
How you feel?
Good.
Wonderful. Let's take it to the right.
There's a long way to go before Christina is even close to what used to be normal, but she can bike.
This is very therapeutic. This is the most therapeutic thing in our life.
And tell you all about it.
It's good to have the exercise to use all my muscles. And it's good to see people and the scenery.
And that's enough for now.
Recently, when I wake up next to a person that can talk back to me, that really gives me more strength to keep up the fight. Without Christina's help, I would fall apart. How do you feel?
Good.
Wonderful.
Mark Tauschek, KCCI News Channel 8, Iowa's news leader.
Every year, Iowans young and old from big cities and small farms donate dollars and hours to help strangers on the other side of the globe. And we trust it's helping. But we boarded the longest nonstop flight of any U.S. airline, 17 hours each way, to Johannesburg, South Africa, and then headed out to remote tribal villages not far from Botswana and Mozambique for a week-long quest to find the faces depending on Iowa. If the tribal crowds didn't do it, it was the faces that elicit fear. A realization.
Wow, this is Africa. We're not in the United States anymore.
A land where elephants roam free.
Always be very careful. Look, listen, smell.
Making Iowans freeze while their cannons fire.
There's something really kind of exciting and special about Africa.
Specifically, South Africa.
It is a beautiful country.
Beauty in its creatures and beauty in its simplicity. Like the donkey carts shuttling kids to the party.
A year ago, this was just open field.
A party being thrown by an Iowa doctor.
A white guy from America.
Who's marking a milestone. Another feeding center built by Iowans for African kids. Like 12-year-old Jacqueline.
I'm living with my mother, my brother, my sister, and my young sister.
Who'd all go hungry without Iowa.
It changed my life very much, and they gave me food and everything I need.
Our vision is by a year, at most 2 years, we'll be feeding 10,000 children every day using the rice packets that many Iowans have worked at Hy-Vee Hall and schools and churches all over the state packaging.
That's 10,000 children fed across this country every day. In this one spot, on this one Saturday, the cooks in the kitchen were planning on 1,000. Which is why they put a farmer from Boone to work, slicing open the very packages he sealed.
When we package this stuff in Des Moines or Iowa, wherever we are, it's kind of a hypothetical thing. I mean, we have this picture that somebody's given us about where it goes. But to actually come and to see the people and to understand that there's kids here today, that this is the only food that they'll get today, you see, that's impressionable.
For hours they cooked, while those donkey carts kept rolling in with the kids who simply wanted to play and eat. Only it wasn't 1,000 that showed up, it was 1,500, and that created a big problem. When the plates ran out, they grabbed cups.
There's hungry kids, and we're just trying to get out as much food out as possible.
As quickly as possible, because this sea of kids was waiting for their only nutritious meal of the day.
This puts a huge perspective on it.
And this is just one day in one feeding center. But on this day, there was another milestone.
Now, it's not every day that somebody celebrates a 20 millionth meal.
20 million meals in 5 years, from Iowa to the world. That 20 millionth one traveled to the African village that Urbandale doctor now calls home.
I had a great job, I made a lot of money, and I enjoyed my job.
Dr. Jim Blessman used to work for Mercy Medical Center.
I ran their pain center for 25 years.
Until 8 years ago, when he says God called him to Africa.
Father, we just come to you and we thank you. All of my physician peers thought I had gone crazy, and they were very much, they thought I was extremely weird.
After he came to Africa, he really wanted me to come, and I just did not want to come. I was really stubborn, and finally I said okay, just to get him off my back.
But within months, the couple used their Iowa connections to start an African transformation. Iowa manufacturers got on board. So did churches and medical schools, and, a key for the future, farmers.
Bringing rice from Iowa is a short-term answer. That is not the long-term answer.
For that, check out what surrounds those kids eating Iowa's meals. A field of corn, planted back in November. Spring here in the Southern Hemisphere.
This year they see our yields and they say, how do you do that? We say, come back and we'll teach you.
We have just started it. It's still in its infancy, and it is touching the community a lot.
Yohani's an African agronomist determined to make his plot using Iowa techniques, the neighborhood model.
So they really like it, and many people are asking, how can we do it? Can we also do it? So many questions.
And Iowans are feeding them the answers about their gardens and more.
So they could raise a few chickens and again, feed themselves and even sell some.
But education takes time. For now, the immediate help stamped Des Moines fills semi-sized containers and entire warehouses.
That is real, you know, knowing that I know I was there on that day.
When Iowans filled these boxes.
And now it just brings it to fruition that we can see exactly what we did.
Saving the lives of adorable orphans whose parents died from AIDS.
90% of the food that they eat is from Iowa.
And teenagers who play barefoot soccer while their day's only meal cooks over an open flame.
No, they have not enough to eat because sometimes there's no money to buy some food.
Some might look at this land of safaris as just a tourist stop filled with Kodak moments. To the Africans receiving this humanitarian effort from Iowa,
I think it's massive. I sometimes wonder if the people in Iowa realize what the difference this makes in Africa. Remember, when you look at South Africa through the TV, you look and you think, oh, you know what? South Africa is okay. We're not. There's many children that still go to bed without food. It is massive. It's not just something that, you know, you can take just by the way and it has happened. It is a huge impact that this has made in our country.
Crocodile.
Visit the heart of Africa's wilderness, and you expect to come face to neck with a giraffe.
The only mammal without vocal cord.
Or a wildebeest along the road. You don't expect remote tribal leaders to openly gush over your home state.
So what you are doing is a very great, good job.
I've never been to Iowa, but whenever I get there, I want to hug them and say thank you.
I love the Americans from Iowa, Des Moines. I love you so much.
Why the love from under a lonely tree in a third world village?
I think it took us about 30 minutes over washboard roads to get here.
Good, okay.
It starts with the amateur optometrists.
Don't focus on the glasses. You want to focus on talking to them, building a little relationship with them. Keep your eyes open big.
Getting a crash course in vision from an Iowa MD.
And hello, I'm Dr. Blessman.
A retired pain specialist who still can't speak the local language, Sepedi.
I'm 67.
Despite living here most of a decade.
Tell her I think we can help her.
They're yours. I have a problem with my eyes.
In this village where unemployment is 80% and food is scarce, a cheap $5 pair of glasses at a prescription close to correct.
When they see a smile, I think, bingo, I think we found it.
Can give these worn faces the gift of sight and a shot.
Thanks, Lena.
Thank you.
At a trade like sewing.
I think that some American loves us, and I think this is a very nice thing.
And while they're here,
they don't come until it's really, really bad.
The locals who live in this country with more people with AIDS than anywhere else on the planet can get tested and helped by wide-eyed medical students from Des Moines University.
The first patient we saw when we arrived was like a 40-year-old female that had HIV, tuberculosis, and hepatitis B. And I've never seen any of that.
Yeah, it's dramatic.
Not as good.
Every month, aspiring doctors from Iowa rotate in, seeing patients in a program started by the university's former president, who's now our governor.
I think Governor Branstad came over here and they, Dr. Blessman and him kind of said, this is an experience for our students that they're not going to get anywhere else. And it's true.
They have to stand the night before just to be seen in the morning.
But lives threatened by disease are getting Iowa care, while others are getting Iowa ingenuity.
The earth here in Africa is very high percent clay.
Across the street from all too common shanties is a machine getting a workout.
Well, the neat factor is it's from Pella, Iowa.
Somewhere in that dust, you'll see the name Vermeer, the Iowa equipment manufacturer that decided dirt could become brick.
So we need the earth, and then we need about 6% Portland cement, a little bit of moisture.
When locals play its levers like organ pedals, hydraulics compress the earth, spitting out 4 bricks every minute. Enough to build a family a sturdy shelter in days, because an Iowa company told its engineers, try.
It's kind of some of their way to give back to the community and the world. I don't think they expect to make a huge profit on these machines.
Neither did Des Moines architect Doug Sharp, who donated his design for simple abodes constructed to house orphans and their teachers.
They're doing a wonderful job here in South Africa, especially here where I stay.
And Iowa's impact keeps growing. Just at Christmas time, hundreds of churches and civic groups from Osceola to Algona filled shoeboxes with toys and toiletries. It's a program called Operation Christmas Child. 100,000 of those shoeboxes are clearing customs right now in Johannesburg. Within weeks, they'll be handed out to kids like these. The same ones already playing soccer with balls that scream, "Come and go," a third of the way around the planet from the nearest Iowa-based convenience store.
Our reputation is widespread now, and that means we are making a difference.
And that's in addition to the 2 million South African children our state is feeding this year alone.
We don't want to become just a social agency, so whenever we're involved with helping feed the children, we require that their hearts and minds are also enriched.
I just want to thank to everyone in Iowa.
You know, seeing that we are actually affecting these lives, me as an Iowan, I'm one Iowa girl here helping these South African people. It's pretty amazing.
The children are growing, they're thinking better, they're healthier.
And we have people who are counting on us. You know, we're really in for the long haul.
We're better together.
One child at a time, one day at a time, and we will make a difference.
Now on News Channel 8 at 6.
The bodies found yesterday are those of Lyric Cook and Elizabeth Collins.
2 missing Evansdale cousins found dead. A county park closed for days as investigators search for clues. Tonight, teammate coverage of what police and the community are doing to find answers. Her own son disappeared 30 years ago. Tonight, Noreen Gosh gives her insight into what the grieving parents are going through, what she says should be done now. Battling a fire in a burning house sent him plunging through the floor into the basement. What this firefighter credits for his escape. News Channel 8 in HD starts right now.
It has been nearly 5 months since Elizabeth Collins and Lyric Cook Morrissey disappeared while riding their bicycles in Evansdale.
Just 2 hours ago, authorities said that they are confident now the bodies that were discovered yesterday 20 miles northeast of Evansdale are the 2 missing girls. Investigators spent the day combing the Seven Bridges wildlife area for clues as the town of Evansdale comes to grips with the terrible news. We have teammate coverage, and we begin with News Channel 8's Patrick Bell, live via News Star 8 in Evansdale with the latest on the investigation. Patrick.
Yeah, Kevin and Stacy, now that local, state, and federal investigators believe the bodies found yesterday are those of Lyric Cook and Elizabeth Collins, the focus shifts a bit. Now detectives want to find out exactly, from a medical standpoint, what caused those girls' deaths and, perhaps more importantly, who's responsible. Now, as you mentioned, you're taking a look, actually, of the Seven Bridges Conservation Area near Redland. For reference, that's in Bremer County, about 20 miles northeast of Evansdale, where Lyric and Elizabeth's abandoned bicycles were found this summer. Now, right now, teams of forensic experts, including sheriff's deputies, state investigators, and FBI agents, are on scene, thoroughly searching for any evidence in hopes of not just identifying a suspect, but remember, they're also gathering evidence for an eventual criminal trial. And speaking of a crime, I did ask authorities about the status of this investigation and whether or not it's now officially a double homicide. Take a listen.
I would say that we are looking that way. At this time, we have 2 bodies, but we're going to rely on the state medical examiner to tell us what they think.
And forensics teams will be searching that conservation area at least until Monday, which gives you a good idea of how thorough that search will be. And although positive identification has not yet been made, Laura Nichols, folks here are really kind of coming to the realization that Lyric and Elizabeth won't likely be coming home.
That's right. For 5 months, everyone here in Evansdale has held out hope that the girls were still alive, perhaps being held captive somewhere, and that they would eventually come home. Well, today that hope was shattered. In fact, everyone here is devastated. We got a chance to talk to a lot of people today. Even strangers who didn't even know the girls cried and teared up at even the mention of their names. Now, the shift has focused from finding them to now finding justice for them.
Investigators spent all of Thursday meticulously combing the Seven Bridges County Park for evidence and clues to how 2 bodies ended up here. 20 miles away in Evansdale, members of the community did their best to deal with the horrific news.
We are praying and keeping them in our thoughts.
it's a horrible thing. I mean, I can't imagine somebody who would do something like that to little kids. I mean, it's obvious somebody did something.
Close friends of the Collins family say they have no idea who could have done this.
Maybe it is someone that the girls knew. In any effect, it's just scary to think that a monster came into our town and plucked 2 little girls out of their summer vacation and they would never return home. And you know, there's been nothing solid to lead us to the perpetrator, and we have a whole new fight now.
It's been 5 months of agony for this community. Pink ribbons, signs, and posters have covered every inch of Evansdale since July 13th, the day Elizabeth Collins and Lyric Cook vanished while riding bikes around Myers Lake.
I trust that law enforcement will do their job. They've worked tirelessly on this and done the best that they could so far, and I trust that they'll continue that and won't stop until we all have answers.
Now, there is a $150,000 reward for an arrest and conviction in this case. Authorities want you to come forward if you have any information at all. You can call the Evansdale Police Department and also Crime Stoppers. Now, I want to mention right now, there is a memorial going on behind us. You can see this Christmas tree here. We mentioned it earlier. It has a sign saying, "Decorate the tree for Lyric and Elizabeth." Family, friends, people have come out here wearing pink to put an ornament on the tree in memory of those girls. That will be going on until 8 o'clock. They plan to have a prayer at 7, so we'll bring you coverage of that later on tonight. Back to you, Kevin and Stacy.
Laura Nichols and Patrick Bell reporting live tonight from Evansdale.
So, where do investigations like these go now? Tonight on First News at 5, we asked former Des Moines Police Chief Bill Mulder about what investigators will be looking for as they search through that Seven Bridges wildlife area.
They'll begin to be able to bring in the resources of profiling, because there will be information associated with the means and the manner of death that will be indicative of what went on. There's a high probability of trace evidence.
Former Chief Mulder also says that kidnapping 2 girls at the same time is difficult, so it's very possible that if the girls are found to have been kidnapped and murdered, they may have known their abductor.
And this story hit home with a lot of parents, but especially one mom who told Eric Hansen it rekindled her nightmarish past.
Stacey, Noreen Gosh's son Johnny was kidnapped 30 years ago this fall, but this has been more than just another missing children's case to her. It's personal, and she says lawmakers need to act this January.
It's just like a thud in your heart.
Noreen Gosh felt it Wednesday when the news broke. Since last summer,
it is very, very difficult for me to watch another family go through this, the agony.
The mom whose son Johnny was abducted 30 years ago has become a resource for the Evansdale families.
Just shoulder to lean on. She's been there, so she knows what it's like.
But as weeks turned to months, Noreen became less optimistic.
We now know the sad part is they're not going to ever come home.
And this news, she says, is at least a resolution.
Yes, it's a terrible heartache to get through when it is your child and they are found dead. But one has to weigh, if they were already dead, would you rather know and bring them home and give them the respect of bringing them home? Or would you rather go 30 years and not know for certain?
But this news does more.
Parents who have children who are kidnapped relive it.
To say it makes Noreen mad is an understatement.
Why did somebody do this to our baby? Who does this? What goes through my mind is what those little ones experienced. The torture, the whatever they were put through is the unthinkable.
Which is why the mom who successfully pushed for plenty of missing children's laws plans to push hard for another this year. The death penalty for cases like this that hit her so close to home.
I will work with anybody who wants to step forward and let's do this. We've had enough of our children taken. No more.
Noreen's already been working with the Evansdale families on the so-called cousins law that would change Iowa's Amber Alert rules. So she says she wants just something good somewhere to possibly come from such an awful case.
Yeah. Truly awful. Eric, Johnny Gosh's story is going to be getting some national attention soon, right?
Yeah, actually, just a little while from now, a week from Sunday, MSNBC will air a new hour-long program in prime time called Maximum Drama. Noreen's been working with them for 2 years on this show. It will focus on the 30 years since Johnny disappeared. That's Sunday the 16th at 8 o'clock on MSNBC.
Okay, Eric, thank you.
Now, while the search for Elizabeth and Lyric appears to be over, questions of how they died are far from being answered. Police still are asking for anyone who has any information in the case to give them a call at either 319-232-6682 or email to ourmissingiowagirls@dps.state.ia.us. There is a $150,000 reward being offered in the case.
In other news tonight, an Ankeny man convicted of murdering his infant daughter wants a new trial. Back in October, a judge found Ryan Trowbridge guilty of killing 4-month-old Riley. Trowbridge claims his daughter was fatally injured when she became stuck between a mattress and headboard. His sentencing was supposed to happen this morning. A hearing on his motion for a new trial and sentencing have been rescheduled for December 11th.
And breaking news now as 3 people escape a house fire in Des Moines this afternoon. It broke out at this home on Norton Avenue about 4:30. 2 adults and a child were inside at the time of the fire. They were able to get out okay, but when firefighters first arrived at the home, witnesses said that they thought someone was still inside.
They did a quick search before they started the fire attack. Didn't find anybody. They were able to put the fire down pretty quick.
Now, firefighters believe it started in a pan of grease left on a stove. They estimate damage at about $40,000.
Some bad project economy news for Boone tonight. A longtime Boone trucking company is going out of business at the end of the week. A manager at Madden Limited confirmed to KCCI that employees have been notified the freight, shipping, and trucking company will close its doors for Good Friday. He said the company has fewer than 80 employees, a mix of drivers, mechanics, and office staff. He said Madden is a victim of the bad economy. The company has been in business since 1960.
The gradual cool down continues. Temperatures in the 50s today.
And 40s tomorrow as we continue to go downhill toward the weekend. A little bit of light rain out there. Still a bit of it mainly in southern Iowa. You can see that on our Viper radar display. Gradually pushing off to the east. Another band of light rain now moving into the northwestern counties of the state. Overnight tonight, we'll see temperatures falling into the low 30s, but that will be after the rain moves through, so shouldn't have any slick roadways to mess with. And then tomorrow, sunshine returns and highs in the mid-40s.
Thank you very much, John. Well, the first of those Cy-Hawk basketball battles takes place tonight.
Well, what coaches Lisa Bluter and Bill Fennelly are saying about tonight's game.
A Norwalk house fire causes a floor to collapse, taking down a firefighter with it. I'm Shayna Humphreys. Coming up, he tells us what it was like to feel the ground disappear beneath him.
This is KCCI News Channel 8 at 6 in HD with Kevin Cooney, Stacy Horst, Chief Meteorologist John McLaughlin, and Sports Director Andy Garman. We're proud to be Iowa's news leader.
I just started grabbing for anything I could, and everything that I grabbed a hold of went with me through the hole.
A small fire in an abandoned home could have changed one firefighter's life forever. The assistant chief of the Norwalk Fire Department is doing better today after a terrifying fall earlier this week.
Today, he told News Channel 8's Shayna Humphreys just how it felt to have the floor collapse beneath him. Shayna?
When the firefighters first arrived to that old house in rural Norwalk, they saw very little smoke, and they even said to one another that it would be a really quick and easy job.
Instinct and adrenaline. That's all he had left to rely on when the floor was literally pulled out from beneath him.
There was no warning. Was standing on a carpeted surface, and there was no indication that there was any compromise to the floor. And then it just gave way underneath me, and the next thing I know, I was falling through the hole.
He tried to grab hold of anything near him, but everything just came crashing down.
Very, very heavy smoke conditions in the basement. I couldn't see my partner 3 feet from me when we heard a loud crash. Couldn't figure out what it was.
I was just hoping that somebody was there to find me.
And when instinct and adrenaline weren't enough, his brother showed up to pick up the pieces.
My partner and I looked at each other and said, "What was that?" "I don't know, but it didn't sound very good."
They answered his call for help and sprung into action, quickly getting everyone else out of danger.
We can't predict a lot of things. Our conditions change. We don't know where we're going, those type of things. So that's where the training is critical.
Coburn says he and his brothers do a lot of training for things that will likely never happen.
The one time that it did, it worked out well, and it doesn't always in those situations. So I feel very lucky and very fortunate.
He spent some time in the hospital but walked away with only minor injuries.
I'm bruised and banged up, but I'll make a full recovery.
And when he does, he's going right back where he belongs.
It is a dangerous profession, but each job comes with risk, and I've always wanted to be a firefighter, and I still want to be a firefighter, and it's the most rewarding job and the best job in the world, and I'll look forward to coming to work every day.
Now, they think the floor's poor integrity caused the collapse, and that could be the result of no one living there, poor maintenance, or even wood-eating insects.
We heard him say he looks forward to getting back to work. Is he back at work yet?
No, not quite, even though he looks like he could be. He has about another week to be at home.
All right, thanks, Shana. Meanwhile, the Adair County fire investigators are looking into a cause of a blaze that destroyed a building at Rose Acres. The building, which ordinarily houses 120,000 chickens, was empty at the time. No one was hurt. The cause of the fire is still not known.
Got up into the 50s today, but really didn't feel like it because there was no sun.
Yeah, cloudy, some drizzle, even a few spots picking up some measurable rain. Cooling temperatures, though, will be with us as we head into the weekend.
Now from Storm Team 8, your most accurate meteorologist, using the latest technology to keep you ahead of the storm. And the only live Doppler radar, Live Super Doppler HD.
Welcome back, everyone. It's the holiday season, and nothing says Christmas like Winnie the Pooh. This is at 63rd and Pleasant as you head down 63rd off I-235. Right now behind me, the Brenton Skating Plaza. A little better news for them, colder temperatures on the way, so we won't have slush as they've had lately. 46 degrees, northwest winds. Early morning down into the low 30s. Tomorrow will warm again, but not quite as nicely as today. Mid to upper 40s. A little bit of rain still visible. Live Super Doppler HD across the southeastern section of the state and up to the north. Some extremely light rain, more so drizzle. Zoom in for you. Oskaloosa picking up a little bit of a shower, just kind of drizzly light rain. Albia, Moravia down toward Centerville. Here in the metro, it's been dry for the most part. We've had some mist or drizzle, but not enough to actually register in the rain gauge. Around central Iowa, though, a few spots did pick up measurable rain. Nevada 700s, Colo 600s, but for the most part, it was just barely enough to kind of wet the ground out there. Temperature-wise now, we're in the upper 30s to the north to the lower to mid 40s in central Iowa. Cloud cover has kept the temperature from moving too much as that rain continues to push steadily to the east. Watching out to the west, there are some breaks in the cloud cover now. That'll move in later tonight and tomorrow. And we'll have a couple of decent days before a much different scenario late Saturday into Sunday. High pressure tonight, that'll feed easterly winds into the state, and that will result in a cool day tomorrow. There will be some light snow showers across Minnesota, some of those perhaps getting into the far northern sections of the state, but it really appears to be very light if it does happen. For tonight, cloud cover across the region. There'll be that weak disturbance up north, maybe clipping a little bit of light snow in the far northern counties. But as far as significant snow, it really looks like this next system coming in Saturday night and Sunday, which had at least the potential for some snow in central Iowa, appears to be kind of breaking into two sections. We'll have one to the north, and again, this is kind of the freezing line if you look at the longer range predictions that we've been showing you lately. So across northern Wisconsin, maybe up into northeastern Minnesota, some heavier snow. Maybe very light here in central Iowa. We'll have to see how it pans out, but lately it's been kind of a lessening the significance of this event here in Iowa for Saturday night and Sunday. We'll promise, though, colder temperatures on the way. 32 tonight with the rain showers pushing out. During the day tomorrow, mid-40s, partly cloudy, and a northeasterly wind. Temperatures will continue to cool down over the next couple of days. Again, that wintry mix possible late Saturday into Sunday here in Iowa. Those temperatures are going to be right around the freezing point, so could go back and forth. And then Sunday, wind and very cold. By Sunday afternoon, we're going to have a very strong northerly wind pushing chilly air into the state. Look at the low temperature early Monday morning, 16 degrees, and then just 20s on Monday. We're going to improve that a little bit, but it will take several days with midweek temperatures finally getting back into the 40s. This is a very strong push of cold air. Fortunately, it looks like not coming with much snow here in Iowa.
All right, John, thank you.
Coming up tonight on News Channel 8 at 10, Patrick Bell will be back with us to show us how Evansdale is coming together to remember Lyric Cook and Elizabeth Collins as law enforcement continues its investigation into how the two cousins died.
Tony Seaman joins us now with sports and the Cy-Hawk Showdown about an hour away.
All the anticipation, all the buildup, it's come to this. Cy-Hawk Showdown, 7:30 tonight in Iowa City. We're talking about the rivalry coming up next.
Sports Director Andy Garman, Scott Reister, Tony Seaman, KCCI Sports, Iowa's sports leader.
In just over an hour, the Cy-Hawk series will be underway in Iowa City. The women hit the court tonight at 7:30. A lot of factors heading into tonight's game, but one of the biggest could be the home court advantage. History has proven in the Cy-Hawk series the team wearing the home jersey is usually the team that wins. It was definitely the case last year. The Cyclones came away with a 62-54 win at home and are hoping to buck that trend tonight in Iowa City.
It's a very tough place to play, which it should be. You know, when you play at home in basketball, it needs to be tough. And this series has been one that I hope it changes, but it's been one lately that the home team has won and won fairly easily. 2 years ago we went over there and we embarrassed ourselves.
I don't take any comfort in it. I wish I did. But do I love playing at home? Absolutely. You know, we love playing in Carver Hawkeye Arena. It's a great place to play. Our fans are wonderful. And I think that's what has helped so much in this home court is that both teams have really good fan support.
60 minutes away, Cyclones, Hawkeyes, and Iowa City. Game time is at 7:30. You can see it on the Big Ten Network. We'll, of course, have highlights coming up at 10. Women are going to start things off. Then it's the men's turn. Tomorrow night, Carver Hawkeye will host more Cy-Hawk hoops. This game could turn into an absolute shootout. Both Iowa and Iowa State take pride in speed and their transition game, which means fans can expect to see a lot of buckets tomorrow night.
So I think that the way the two of us like to play with our systems, we really like to get the ball up and down the floor and play an exciting style of basketball. And it's great for the state. You know, I think it'll be a fun game. You know, I think both teams are playing solid basketball right now. Whoever wins this game, it'll be a big win once for the resume.
This team has a lot of weapons. It's rare that you find a team with this kind of athletic power that shoots it that well. You just don't see that combination a lot.
Tip-off is tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. Speaking of home court advantage, the UNI Panthers men's team knows how to use it better than anyone right now. Their latest victim in the McLeod Center was the Northern Colorado Bears last night. UNI racked up a season-high 21 assists and made 12 three-pointers in the contest. The win moves the Panthers to 5-3 on the year, but they've now won 10 straight at home. 76-59 was the final. Carver Hawkeye Arena already in action today with non-conference wrestling. Iowa was hosting Lehigh. This one just wrapped up. The Hawkeyes breezed to a dual win of 26-9. That's your final. The Hawkeyes are now 7-0.
Today's market report is sponsored by Wells Fargo Advisors.
Temperatures tomorrow in the 40s. Light rain will be ending here in 3 or 4 hours.
Thank you, John. Thank you for being with us. Updates at 10.